Oh hey, it's Wes. We're in a slightly different atmosphere today because, well, I was set up for a video shoot that I need to come back to later today, and I don't feel like lugging all my equipment home. But that's none of your concern. Today we're going to talk about the new Zhiyun Smooth X. Seeing a lot of X's lately. Does it make any difference? Is it anything we need? Is it just another gimbal? Actually, for once, it kind of isn't. So let's get into it, starting with the build quality. The Smooth X is very plasticky. You see I have a bunch of stuff on my table here because obviously I want to compare it to other things. So we have our most recent X, the Hohem iSteady X, and the previous offering from Zhiyun, the Smooth Q2. Immediately, there is a huge difference in the build quality between these two devices. Admittedly, this is more expensive, but that's a spoiler for later. So the Q2 is very heavy, very metallic, got a great rubbery grip. This is lightweight, plastic, kind of creaks a little bit, and has a lot of give to the joints. So that's what we're looking at right here for build quality. Weight-wise, we're looking at 246 grams for the Smooth X, 450 grams for the Q2, and 259 grams, almost the exact same for the Hohem iSteady X. So this really pales in comparison to the Q2, and I have to give this no more than a 6 out of 10. It's a little slippery too with all that plastic. Feature set. And this is where things get a little bit different here. This features some not altogether unexpected features. You have a built-in battery with a little bit less runtime. I don't have a huge problem with that because I generally don't use one of these for more than 5 hours at a time, but if you're someone that needs a lot of battery life and you need this to go for a whole weekend, this might not do the job for you and you can't change the battery out yourself. There is no little tripod included. I've seen some other videos where there is a big old tripod included with it. I'm not sure exactly where they're getting that from. In the box here, included features are pretty bare bones. All we have is a USB cable and some instructions. Doesn't come with this elastic band. I use this elastic band to attach my wireless mic receiver. And it's a great place to put it. Strangely enough, Zhiyun brought in a new app to manage this. They're not using the old app, so now we have the brand new ZY Cami app. And I hate to say it, but we're seeing a lot of similarities to another app. Now, I don't know if they were designed alongside each other or if they saw each other's design. I don't want to jump to any conclusions here, but it looks a lot like the Hohem Pro app and not so much like the previous Zhiyun Play app. And within that app, we see a lot of the usual suspects. We see these vortex or inception modes. We see some tracking capability. Unfortunately for me, the tracking isn't great because you have to manually draw a box to get that to work. Whereas I like to have face tracking either on or off so that I can turn it toward myself and do a one-man show sort of thing, because that's how we operate here. On the physical body itself, we have a zoom slider, record button, mode button, and a joystick. It's pretty bare bones, let me tell you, and only one status LED. Don't much care for that myself, which is especially weird to me because there are 4 status LEDs, mode status LEDs on the Q2, only one on the X. But there are 4 battery indicator LEDs on the X, and none on the Q. You can read the battery when you start it up. It shows you how much battery is left on the mode indicators. So I much prefer the previous way of doing this. But I don't want to talk that much about the features in the app. Why is that? Because the biggest feature, the only one you need to know about, is this. The gimbal hardware, the smarts, the battery and stuff, are actually all up here in the top of the gimbal. And so when you turn this thing on, which takes a little bit of time for some reason, all of a sudden you are stabilizing at the end of a stick. Now, at first glance, this seems really stupid because aren't we all over selfie sticks by now? We'll get into that a little bit more later. And so as you can see, if you look really closely, we have a bit of a compromise going on here. There are only 2 axes in this gimbal. We can stabilize this way and this way, but there's no rock stabilization. How's that going to affect us? Well, let's get the features out of the way. Overall, the feature set, when you include the app, you include what this thing does. We're losing a bit of features for the lack of third axis, but we're gaining some features for this thing right here. So I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 for feature set. Interface. And this is really what differentiates most of these. And I've got to say, I am not super happy with the interface here. Number one, and I want to get this out of the way immediately, I talked about this in the iSteady X review. To get this thing going, you have to use the app and you have to register this device. There is no just booting it up and using it. This thing won't work at all until you've registered it. With the iSteady X, it just beeped at you, so in a way it was useless until then. This one, completely useless until you do that. I find this practice to be completely deplorable. It's entirely possible for them to push firmware updates to this and to do what needs to be done without requiring this registration. This is ridiculous, I can't stand it, and I need them to stop doing that. And until they do, they're getting terrible points for interface and usability. That being said, moving right along, the app itself is very slow. It loads slowly, it seems to pull a bunch of stuff from the internet just to load up the app, and then when you go to switch to the camera, I'm switching to the camera here. There it is. It takes over 5 seconds for the camera to launch in the app. So, on the surface, one would think, okay, so I'll get it registered with the app and then I just won't use it anymore. Unless you want all those other weird advanced features that I'm sure a lot of people love. I just don't use a lot. The problem there is I can't get this thing to successfully sync via Bluetooth to be able to use the buttons on the handle without first launching the app, then connecting the device. If I just boot up the device, I can see it, it connects via Bluetooth on my phone, but it does nothing. Until that app has made its own interface, this thing does not work properly. Drives me nuts. So I'm using an iPhone 11 Pro, and the most basic feature within this app takes over 5 seconds to launch. This has a blistering fast processor. It should not take that long. So hopefully Zhiyun will be coming out with lots of firmware updates in the future to fix these issues. Because other than that, this app is great. It has all of those features that we've come to expect in gimbal apps. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with it. It's not even unstable. I haven't had it crash once. It's just so slow, and it locks you in and makes you do things that you don't necessarily want to do. Overall, the usability of the interface, I'm only giving this a 2 out of 10 for now. Sorry, Zhiyun. Stabilization. And well, I'm not going to prove anything just sitting right here, so let's head on over to Vlog West to find out more about that. Stabilization. And well, that's what this is for, right? So obviously we're not going to expect the same amount. This is only a 2-axis gimbal as opposed to a 3. And yeah, it does show, but not as much as I expected it to. The one thing I really wanted to try with this was switching from the front-facing camera to the rear camera, which is always superior quality. And I thought that that might be able to be accomplished here by using face tracking, which a lot of these gimbals have, but this one doesn't yet have in the app. So let's give that a whirl anyway. And since I can get this further away from my face using the built-in arm, it is easier to use the primary camera. I just can't be sure that it's pointing at me the whole time. However, I assume I'm getting better image quality on this. I mean, I'll leave a note later to say whether or not I actually did. But being able to get it further away from my face, using that primary camera, is a real win. Now, I know some people will actually set up little mirrors behind their phones so that they can see what's going on with that main camera. I'm not going to do that, but it would be nice to have that face tracking included so that I can do this without worrying too much. I could switch to the wide-angle lens, but that's actually worse quality than the front-facing lens on the iPhone 11 Pro. With that extra reach, it gives you extra versatility with this camera. Now, sorry for getting a little bit too close to you though. We'll switch back. Well, I checked just on my phone and it was immediately obvious that the quality was much better. In some ways you can see my face better in the front-facing camera, but this doesn't do as much cooking, looks much more natural. So overall, let's compare this to the Smooth Q and see how it stacks up side by side. So yeah, that's not half bad. It's not as good, but it's not terrible. So I'm gonna have to give this a 6 out of 10 for stabilization. Let's get back to the studio. Thanks, Vlogwes. Back in the studio here, let's talk about the value. And we have some surprising stuff going on here. Here, not there, over here. With the value, this thing is only 60 bucks. That is insane. I have no idea how they're making this for 60 bucks. Yes, it feels cheap. Yes, it's mixing an Axis, but that's still a phenomenal value. If we look at the competitors, we have the similarly compact iSteady X, 80 bucks, and we have the Q2 down here for $120. Yes, it gave us slightly better stabilization. Yes, the build quality is better, but it is twice the price. So you gotta want to have that best stabilization to really sell into the Q2. And then we have tried and true, the Osmo Mobile 3 for 90 bucks, or the kit with the feet for 120. So, what does that tell us up here? It tells us that this is a solid 9 out of 10 for value. So, overall, total score, we've got a 31 out of 50. That's not a great score. It's not too bad, but you know, it's not one of my bests for sure. But that doesn't tell the whole story. So overall, the app experience and this gimbal, it's just a little bit chintzy at this point. But, huge but, as soon as you do this, and you can stabilize at the end of a selfie stick, for people who vlog on their phone, you're done. This is the one, buy this, you're done. Game over. All these other things, I used to take the Q2 and put it at the end of a GorillaPod, or just try to get my arm out further. It was uncomfortable, it was not ideal. Or you could use a selfie stick that's constantly bouncing around. Not this guy. So for that one niche, that one market, this is the exact thing that you've been waiting for. And I'm sure that app updates will come to speed things up, to streamline the process. So, for overall basic gimbal duties, it's not amazing. It doesn't stack up that well. But for getting angles that you couldn't otherwise get, and for working as a vlogging selfie stick, this is it. So, if you have any questions about this, any comments, if you've tried this and want to say something about it, let me know down in the comments. I'm always hanging out down there. If you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know there as well. But, until next time, go take some photos.